If you've ever grown an orchid, you know that amazing feeling when you see a brand new flower spike starting to grow. You picture this perfect, elegant waterfall of flowers. But then, something goes wrong, and you end up with this twisted, zigzagging mess that's just not what you wanted. Well, today, we're going to dig into the one simple mistake that's likely causing this and the really cool science behind why it happens.
So how do we get from that gorgeous, promising stalk to, well, that tangled disappointment? It's a super common frustration for orchid lovers, but the answer isn't some complex thing like you're overwatering or using the wrong fertilizer. Nope. The culprit is something most of us do without even thinking twice about it.
All right, let's get into this twisted tale. It's a story that I'm guessing a lot of you know by heart. You spend months caring for your plant, you finally get that precious new flower spike, and then the big reveal is a total letdown.
And look, this isn't just a small flaw. A twisted spike, as our source material says, totally undermines the whole point of the plant's beauty. It just ruins that incredible rewarding feeling you get from seeing all your hard work finally pay off. So, what's the simple act behind all this horticultural heartbreak?
Okay, here it is. The mistake is turning the pot. That's it. That totally harmless act of just rotating your orchid to get a better look at those developing flowers, that is exactly what causes the spike to tie itself into knots. Let's break down how this happens, day by day. So here we go. Day 1. You've got your orchid sitting by a window. The new spike starts to grow. And just like it's supposed to, it grows straight and tall, reaching for that light. So far, so good. Everything's perfect. Okay, now it's day 5. You see those beautiful little buds starting to form, and you can't help it, you spin the pot around to get a better look. Well, you've just completely changed the game for your plant. The light that was in front of it is now coming from behind. And bam! The very next day, the orchid's survival programming kicks in. The very tip of that spike senses where the light is now and immediately starts to bend itself back towards the window. That right there, that's the first twist in what's about to become a tangled mess. And of course, a few days later, you might do it again. You turn it to show a friend or just to admire it from another angle. And every single time you do, you force another course correction, another bend. Each rotation just adds a new twist, and you end up with this corkscrew instead of that beautiful arch. So that really begs the question, right? Why is the plant so obsessed with following the light? Well, the answer is in its biology. This isn't your orchid just being difficult, it's following ancient, hardwired rules for survival. It's all about this deep, instinctual need to seek the sun. The official term for this is phototropism. Photo means light and tropism means to turn. It's simply a plant's ability to grow towards a light source. For a plant, light is food, it's energy. So maximizing sunlight isn't a choice. It's a fundamental instinct for survival. And what's really cool is that scientists have been figuring this out for over 100 years. It actually started way back in 1880 with, of all people, Charles Darwin. He figured out that the very tip of the plant acts like an eye that senses the light. But it took until 1926 for a scientist named Fritz Wendt to finally pinpoint the chemical messenger that was sending all the signals. And that chemical messenger is a hormone called auxin. You can think of auxin as the plant's growth manager. It travels down the stem and basically gives orders to the cells, telling them how fast to grow. And this is where the real magic of how a plant bends happens.
So how does a tiny little hormone actually cause a big, thick orchid spike to physically bend itself? It all comes down to a really clever trick of growing unevenly on purpose.
So here's the secret. Sunlight actually makes auxin run away. The hormone moves from the sunny side of the stem over to the shaded side. So the cells on the dark, shaded side get this huge dose of growth hormone, telling them grow, 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 while the cells on the bright, sunny side get way less. This creates a big imbalance. And that imbalance creates one simple, incredibly powerful rule of plant growth. The shaded side grows faster. That's it. And because one side is growing faster than the other, the whole stem is forced to bend towards the slower growing side, which is, of course, towards the light. Now, if you want to get really nerdy about it, scientists call this the acid growth hypothesis. But all that means is that the auxin hormone basically makes the cell walls on the shaded side a little softer and more flexible. Think of it like making one side of a balloon stretchier than the other. Because that side can stretch more, those cells get longer, and that's what physically forces the whole stem to bend.
Okay, so now that we know the science, how do we use it to our advantage? How do we finally grow that perfect, graceful, untwisted display we've all been dreaming of? Well, thankfully, the solution is way simpler than the science. Here it is, the 4-step untwist method. Step 1. Find a good spot with one main consistent light source, like a bright window. Step 2, and this is the most important part. Once you put it there and the spike starts growing, leave it alone. Do not turn it. Resist the urge. Step 3, you have to be patient. Wait until every single flower on that spike is fully open and the stem feels a bit firm. And finally, step 4, now, only now, can you turn the plant around and enjoy that perfect display you've earned.
Of course, not turning the pot is just one piece of the puzzle. To get a really spectacular show, you've got to nail the basics too. That means giving it the right food to fuel all that growth, making sure there's a little temperature drop at night to tell the plant it's time to make flowers, keeping the humidity high so the buds don't dry up and fall off, and, of course, being really consistent with your watering. Get all that right, and you're setting yourself up for success.
So when you get right down to it, your orchid isn't trying to be difficult. It's just obeying a powerful, universal law of nature: seek the light. And that kind of leaves you with a bigger thought, doesn't it? What other things in our own world, maybe our own habits or the way we think, are being quietly shaped and bent by powerful, invisible forces we barely even notice? Thanks for digging into this with me.